Welcome to Stories from the 3 Billion Under 30, featuring interviews with world-class millennials as well as the celebrities, Fortune 500 executives, and mentors that guide us. Welcome to yet another episode of Stories from the 3 Billion Under 30. I'm really excited about this one. We got Dan Schawbel. And
you said it right.
I did say it right.
We're halfway there, just me getting it right.
It's the Jewish thing, man. But no, Dan has such a huge scope of work. Not only everyone claims, or not claims, but they go straight to the whole fact that he's a New York Times bestselling author. But that's just like one tiny thing that Dan's been able to do. He's interviewed over 1,500 people, if not 1,600 plus. It keeps going, and major celebrities. He's had multiple New York Times bestselling books in his 20s. He's done research projects with Fortune 500s, with very big research firms that he's personally, helped raise like $500,000 for. Just the scope of Dan's work and how young Dan is so impressive and something that really I admire. And I reached out to you, I think, when I was 18, and then we finally became friends when I was 20. And it's just really cool to now have you on the show. So thanks for your time.
Happy to be here.
We got a lot to cover, and I really want to get super practical about it. But how do you accomplish so much in so little time? I mean, we were talking a little bit about goal setting before the interview, but how do you even approach, here's what I want to do in life, here's what I can do in life, and here's what I'm going to do in life? Great
question. So I never set out to do any of this, but I had parents who gave me great work ethic. So I started work when I was 13. First internship in high school, 7 more in college. Leader in 7 student-run organizations in college.
Oh my God.
I mean, so, straight A's, even though I got B's in high school.
Yeah.
I was first business sophomore year of college, 3.5 years at a big company when I graduated, 3 different roles outside of work, started a blog with 0 subscribers, no content, 0, and built that up, and now we're over 6 million. And that's one part of what I've done.
Right.
Then I've done the research, and everything I've done, there's no blueprint. I just kind of figure it out. And it's taken me 8 years to connect everything I've done into the larger story arc, giving me a mission statement of helping our generation from student to CEO. Right? It makes sense with the books. First book, Me 2.0, is helping them go from college to first job, promote yourself as first job to management. So it's taken me a long time to put all the pieces together.
So is next book going from management to being the biggest manager?
It's going to be
something like that.
I won't say, but it's going to be a lot about managing and leadership. And really the crux of what I try and tell people is you have to do as much as possible as early in your life as possible if you can, right? So I was doing a million things when I was younger, and so I was figuring out, at least from the corporate standpoint, do I want to work at a large company, a small company, what industry, what profession, where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses? And when I figured all that out, it was me graduating into a job that made the most sense for me at the time, but also not letting that work define me, and then nights and weekends I would sacrifice to work on several projects.
And not letting society define you. Really?
Yeah, I never fit in. I'll never fit in. I don't even think I'm trying to fit in. But what I've learned is that you just gotta go for it. I don't think when I'm man, should I interview Arnold Schwarzenegger? I don't even think like that. I just do it. And if it doesn't work,
you're did he say yes? Great. Did he say no? How can I get him to say yes?
Yeah, and with research studies, I was a B student in marketing research. I've raised over $500,000. I just launched my 29th study. I mean, and I found that became my passion. I love doing it. I feel like I'm an archaeologist. I can't even say it right now. I feel like I'm digging for the next dinosaur bone and discovering it and bringing something new into the world.
Yeah.
And it's an addiction that I have to
It's a whole separate conversation to have, because all my research has been qualitative to date. It's been all the interviews. It hasn't been the quantitative, let's go break it down in a super sciencey way to match it. And I think our research is complementary in the sense that I'm looking at world-class millennials and leaning towards the entrepreneurial side of things, whether they're entrepreneurial in building businesses or building music careers or building their personal brands, whatever they're applying entrepreneurial skill sets to. And you're looking more like the entrepreneurs, who are the millennial leaders within corporate America that will run the world in 20 years.
Yeah,
it's cool.
What's interesting is, and I've been talking about this a lot lately with my peers, is that when I was a recent graduate, I had the foresight to keep all my interviews at no more than 5 questions. And the last question I always ask is, what are your top 3 pieces of career advice? And I've done that with 1,600 interviews. And I knew back then as a recent graduate that could turn into something. So eventually, once I maybe hit 5,000, that turns into a book. So I'm thinking years down the road. Like what I'll do too is I want to start a nonprofit in about 7 years. I just bought the domain names. So it's a small commitment that I made that, might end up being a big payout being able to launch the nonprofit. This company I founded last February called workplacetrends.com, I started it 2 years before because I bought the domain name.
Do you have...
And then I sold the company in 10 months.
Do you have a filter, or do you have like a funnel of like small commitments to things you actually do to things that have huge impact on your career, or are you pretty like regimented in this is what I want to do in 7 years and like it ends up happening?
Yeah, so I think what you're really asking is tell me about your goal sheet, right? I've done this for 4 years, and the way I construct it is this. I have a set of 5 goals, personally and professionally, that I mark down. And then I break it down into like subcategories, right? So like one is future workplace, which is the partnership I'm on. We do 4 conferences a year. That's check once each one's done, right? Mm-hmm. Next one is in a week. That'll be done. And then there's 8 research studies I do every year. Check them off. That's happening, right? I want to bring in this much business revenue into the company. Check that off, right? And then there's must complete a book proposal, there's personal ones too. Must travel to these countries, right? Israel now, but London, and
you
Japan.
still go to London?
In Japan. No, in January I was in London.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, where do I want to go on?
And you just came back from Japan.
And it's a checklist. Yeah. And then above those goals are what I need to accomplish on a weekly basis.
Got it.
And then all the way at the bottom, it says future goals. So anything I'm thinking of that I want to eventually focus on, whether it's a company, a book, I want to do a Me 2.0 for high school students eventually, but not now. So the timing isn't right. And so that goes into future goals. And
is this something you look at daily?
I look at it every single day, multiple times a day. Like it's always open. Like that, it's only a Microsoft Word document, very simple, old school. I don't care if I'm a millennial, even if I was a teenager. I like to stick to the basics and not complicate things. I didn't even get a MacBook until last November. So I'm kind of a late adopter when it comes to technology.
Right.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
But a very early mover when it comes to the relationships that are going to shape at least our corporate society.
I'm very big on 2 things. One is the habit of every morning when I wake up, I ask myself, what's going on in my world? And I answer that by spending a half hour to an hour flushing out all the workplace on the research, research on the workplace. So it's been a long day. Figuring out what the latest trends are, because that shapes my day. All my phone calls, if I talk to a head of HR, I'm like, I just read about this. Or if someone's like, Dan, do you have any research on this? I'm like, yeah. So that actually was what created Workplace Trends. It was a combination, an aggregation of what I had done for 8 years.
And real quickly, like, what are those news sources, or what are those sources you
Over
look
160 at? Different sources.
And
how do you look every credible source?
No, not for Workplace Trends, but for your personal like half hour or an hour, or do you look at 160 or like 100 sources within a half hour?
I still use a feed reader, Feedly. Most people don't use that anymore, but I do. I stick to what works. I don't, whether things are popular or not, if it works for me, I use it until it's broken. Like delicious.com is broken. I think it's out of business. And so I use something else now. And the point is that you don't need to always do the next social network. You don't need to, follow everyone else's paths and do what the cool thing is. Do what makes sense for you, right? And whether someone tries to convince me to do something else or not, like today I was on the phone with someone, they're like, why don't you test this out? And I'm like, I just don't want to. Like, this is working for me. I like it. I don't want to add complexity to my life. It's already extremely complex, right? So I think of my life, I have this mission in life, and then I have a good sense of the goals, and I have different dimensions, and I like that. So I'm never bored.
Right. And
I was actually on the phone with my mom today. It was very interesting because, they're like, they're in retirement how their generation retired, right? I mean, my dad's sort of working but not working. She's, working part-time. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm going to be doing this forever. Like, I told the head of HR today at a major company, I said, I almost like, I hope you like me because I'm going to be here till I'm dead. And I'm serious about it. I'm very serious. Like, I'm even thinking, I'm talking to the biggest HR conference, in the world It's my largest audience, 3,500 people. I used to be the shy kid in high school who was scared to speak to 20. So it's like overcoming massive stage fright, right? I mean, there's this research that shows people, would rather die than speak in front of people, right? And so I was able to do that over 100 conferences now. And so it's been a part of a platform, but it's only one element of the story, right? Why should I only be the author? So when people are like, oh, he's the author, part of me gets frustrated because I'm like, that's what you almost want me to be, or you want me to just fit into this one box, whereas I'm the researcher, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm all of these things, and it's not random, and it allows me to break up my day and have a different day every day. Like everyone's like, what's a typical day? There's only a few consistencies in my day, and the one is that I wake up in the morning and look at the trends, and that helps me decide what to focus on for the upcoming year or the upcoming month, right? Because if I know where the trends are, then I find the right companies to support that research, and then we create programs around that. So it's instead of asking companies, hey, what do you want to focus on? I decide, I'm like, these are the 8 topics that are really going to matter to our culture moving forward, and then the right partner steps forward. And that's how I always want to do it, because I've done so many, so I can be a little choosy now, and because I have this gut. I think like my special ability is I can just feel trends. Like because I am so dedicated to looking at trends that I just know what's going to be important, and I've gotten to a point where I think a lot of people trust that and are willing to invest in it. And it's crazy too, because again, be a student in marketing research at school, never thought this was possible. And the reason why I learned marketing research is because I signed Monster.com for a study, and I had to quickly learn how to do marketing research, right? And so I forced myself into these situations. Like I go to a lot of events, I go alone, because if you bring a friend to an event,
you'll speak to that friend.
You'll speak to that friend.
I originally emailed you at 18, and we didn't really connect then. We connected when I was 20. When I was 18, I picked up a pretty important mentor in my life, which was Keith Ferrazzi, and I know you have an interesting view on mentorship, or like the new age of mentorship. Can you share a little bit about your philosophies on mentorship so that anyone who is a mentee can learn how to be the best mentee possible, or anyone on the other side of the table can learn how to pick up a mentee properly and be a good mentor?
Absolutely. So when I was growing up, I followed the same philosophy as you did, is find someone who will invest in you and help them out in any way possible as well. Create kind of a symbiotic relationship. And now over the past year, I'm starting to realize that I wouldn't consider one person a mentor. I think of mentor as a sum of meetings that you have, right? So I have 1,000 mentors, right? And I take something from each one of them. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, hey, will you be my mentor? I look at people who are 16 years old as mentors. Everyone's a mentor.
Do you know Greg Reed by any chance?
No.
No. So Greg Reed is like another author who represents the Napoleon Hill Foundation now. And so he has a cool philosophy that he has. He calls it the hand in the sand mentality. So like everyone gives you advice, right? Or like opinions or counsel, depending on how much they know about the subject or not. But like you could talk to a major chief HR officer of a Fortune 500, and you might talk to your mom, and they might give you, your mom might give you an opinion on something, and that's like counsel, but you just take it all in, and like it's all like just hand in the sand, and you let what you don't like go through the cracks of your fingers and keep what you like.
It's a good way of looking at
what's applicable. So I think that's what you're getting at in your own wording, is that just keep, take everything in, use what's applicable.
But finding the right people is a really important part of the equation. That you meet someone and you're going to close a business deal, or they're going to change your life or something. Don't go in thinking that you have to get something out of it. Be a little bit flexible and open.
Yeah.
Because even the people you meet today in person, if you don't get much out of it, they might help you in 5-10 years. Because here's the reason. Because people have 11 jobs between 18 and 45.
All right, is this on? This would be great.
Yeah, it's been on.
Oh.
18 and 45, and we'll 3 to 6 careers in their lifetime. And because the cards are obviously shuffling and people are moving from one position to the next, from one business to the next, this person that you meet that you respect, who's really smart, They might not be able to help you now. You might not be able to support them now, but think about 2, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, there might be something. So for me, right now, I'm meeting a lot more VCs. I don't need their investment now, but what if I sell this company I have now and then I want to start something new? Maybe they'll help me and fund an idea. So I have long-term thinking, clearly. And I think that's really important because you'll make better short-term decisions if you know where you're going. So you're more willing to speak for free at a TEDx like you've done, right? Because you know where you're going. You know your book series. You kind of know who you want to meet and be around in the circles you want to create. And so you're willing to do things that you might not profit on immediately for the long-term play.
I know we're both pretty collaborative people, but do you, from a competitive viewpoint, do you think we'll end up beating out some of the more short-term minded people that might be?
I don't care. So here's why I don't care. I've been thinking a lot about this lately too. I have no competition. 0. You know why?
So you're 100% collaborative mindset.
It's not even a collaborative mindset. It's, I know who I am. I know what I want to do. And whatever, I'm not going to follow what other people are doing. I'm going to be me. And this it's taken me 8 to 10 years to figure out, right? And if people like steal my, I don't even care, right? Like I'm, and maybe it's because I've achieved enough that it's easier to say to that, but you know, my business partners, they're really concerned about our competitors. I say, let's just be the best we can be. Let's showcase our talents. And if that wins in the marketplace, so be it, right? Instead of, oh, what did, John do and Caitlin, and who cares?
If you're looking at the right trends and then you're, applying yourself to the goals you've set that match those trends, you should be in a good spot.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is I've noticed that people who always look to the competition, so maybe sabotage them or steal from them, they're less talented because they have to make up for it in some way. They have to make up for the lack of talent. And that, it might not sound positive or politically correct, but it's the reality though, right? Like, I know what my gifts are, and I only focus on those, and I avoid everything else. And as a result, I've been able to accomplish more in less time.
Sure.
And I don't even know, like, am I working right now? Am I not working right now? I don't think of any of that anymore, right? I don't think of, people are like, oh, how do you do so much in a day? I don't think of it. It's just, things are just happening at this point, right? Because when you do something so many times, it just becomes a habit. And after you develop the habit, like brushing your teeth or showering or eating lunch, you're not even thinking, it's just happening. And so that's what I think is really important, is you do whatever you can to put yourself in a position. Like, I don't really have a bad Monday. Like, I'm just, I'm pretty happy. As of last October, like, things are in a really, really great situation. But it's because I've spent years and years and years putting in the time, right? And that's what people don't see. They see the output. They see the results. They don't see the journey.
Was there any formative failures during that journey?
Everything's failed. Almost everything's failed.
Everything.
Almost. In some ways. It depends how you look at it, right? Like my magazine, you could say the magazine failed because it got to 30,000 subscribers, and I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore. And maybe I could have sold it, but I didn't, and who knows? I'd say the second blog, studentbranding.com, that failed. Maybe it, paid for itself for advertising for a little bit, failed. Part of me is I take on too much. I still sort of do it, but in a different way. I think that's
What's your vice now for taking on too much?
I don't care.
Too much interviews?
I don't care. You know what? Because I like what I'm doing. I'm selective about projects. If I'm taking out too much, if I'm less successful at something because I'm spread too thin, I don't even care. I'll worry about that when I'm 80. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like what I'm doing, and I'm very into it. And if I wasn't, I wouldn't be able to put this amount of time in. I wouldn't be able to make all these short-term sacrifices, as in, not making as much money or not asking for so many favors right now. I mean, my whole program is I'll help out everyone else, and then every 3 to 5 years I ask for help.
Right.
That's my whole book program. That's why the books do well, is because I help out everyone else out, and then a percentage will help me out.
Sure.
And it's
strategic, but it's genuine.
But if they don't help me out, I don't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't have that
There's no expectation.
No, there's not. And I've always had this mentality, and it's because in school, when I used to go to networking events, I would always hand out my resume because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. And I've realized that is the dumbest thing to do. And now it's all about finding the right people, helping them accomplish their goals. And every successful person wants more notoriety, they want more promotion and PR, and they want to become more successful. That's just how it is. And so knowing that, you figure out what they're looking for and you help them out with no expectation,
right.
And then a percentage will want to reciprocate.
So things like your blogs become great avenues to feature some of those people, give them things of value, and same with your books. If you interview some people for your books, or mentioning them in the talk, or giving them an opportunity to speak if you can't take that or don't want to take that.
And it's even more so. So think of it like this.
Connecting people in your network.
I think about how do you want to make money. So I want to make money maybe speaking, maybe with the businesses and the conferences, the research, and I don't want to make money with career coaching, which I do basically, I volunteer to do now at nonprofits. I mean, I helped homeless people like last weekend.
It's like a not-for-profit
right?
list.
So that's my real expertise. My core expertise is I can take someone, analyze your situation, and really dissect it for you, and then tell you your next career move. Like that's my.
I like the Yahoo series, by the way.
Oh, you did?
How's that been going?
No, it's been going good. I mean, I think that's what I'm really good at, but I don't want to make money from it.
Right.
And I've already decided that, so I'd rather use that for nonprofits, and then clearly, like I'm very good at PR, book proposals, things in certain categories, how to raise money for research, how to start a company from nothing, and all those different topics. And I don't want to make money that way either. I could easily start a book PR firm and grow that. I don't want to do it. I'd rather give it away for free, build the relationships, and then maybe those relationships turn into other projects or other things for how I want to make money or how I want to make money down the road.
We're just having cool friends that you can have barbecues with.
Yeah, and so
that's important too.
Yeah, totally. And again, like my focus areas are different now. You know what I mean? Like if I don't achieve, the next level, I don't care. Like I don't really care because I never thought any of this was possible, right? And so all of this has happened.
You're just like giddy to continue going.
Because I'm curious. It's always been curiosity. I've gotten this far. So what does 40 years old look like?
Okay, so bold question to kind of wrap things up. Where should we all be focused on in the next 20 years? Like where are you personally locked in? 10, 20 years, this is where I want to be, and or this is where I see the world going. And then where should we be in terms of our headspace, in terms of what we're focusing on?
Well, for me, it's somewhat obvious because our generation's going to get older. So as they get older, I'm going to be there to help them in ways in terms of helping companies to create better work environments and then continue to write books so they move up the food chain, right? Or the ladder that's becoming flatter every day. And for other people, again, everything is personal. In the future, everything is personal, from workspaces to training. This is what we're seeing in the workplace right now. And so I think everything comes down to you and what you're looking for. And the only way to really figure out what you're meant to do or what you should focus on is to do as many things as possible. And I speak like that because that's my experience. I did 1 trillion things when I was younger, and that helped me get the experience and learn what I like, who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with, size company I want to work for, type of people, my strengths, my weaknesses. Like, I figured out everything when I was younger because I did so much. And honestly, if I could go back in time, I would have done 20 internships. The more you do, the better, because I've always, since I was 13, worked with people who are 40 years old or older, and that's really helped.
I've been saying that a lot lately. I'm saying, like, I spent my teens hanging out with people in their late 20s, 30s, and 40s, and maybe early 50s, and that's why I'm so mature at my age, and it's huge. It's like, that was like easily the best thing I did. And then I also was going to write a book called The Gap Year Experiment, because I ended up taking 2 gap years and then deciding not to do college altogether. I ended up not publishing that book, although maybe I'll put that content out somewhere. But I did the same thing, like experimentative viewpoint. I was like, I emailed like the 50 to 100 most influential people I knew. It was like, if you were 18 again, what would be the one thing you'd do, or like what's the one life lesson you give yourselves? And I took that list, I published it like on my blog or whatever to like kick that content off. But really, it was just the checklist for me to then determine. I think it was like 25 experiments to do over the course of the year, and some of them were like really crazy, like let's climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I didn't end up doing it. But I found 5 pillars. It was like of places I wanted success. I wanted success in business, health, lifestyle design, relationship building, both personally and professionally, and community building. There's just my 5 pillars. I'm not saying they're perfect. Then I made like 5 or 10, or like 5 key experiments in each, and I accomplished maybe 10 or 15 of them. But just having that viewpoint was definitely a healthy one. So I totally resonate with what you're saying there.
It's really important for people to do, especially at a young age, where if you make a mistake, you can recover very easily.
So is that the number one thing you would tell everyone? Is like, if you're young, be super
that's number one
experimentative?
by far. I mean,
Is experimentative even a word?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Like experimentation, right? You know, it's almost like in math, like guess and check.
Right.
Right. That's so important.
Guess and check.
Right. And
hashtag guess and check.
And you know, people over resumes, right? Because people are the ones who are hiring you, so double down on people. And it's okay to be selective. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to submit my resume to 1,600 jobs. Why? Find the companies you want to work for and beat down that door. Like that has been my whole life. I didn't get an early decision in my college. I beat down the door. You know, on campus interview, written them a letter, straight A. Like I got in. And then Reebok, 1.5 years to get in. They usually only give internships to the executives, the sons and daughters of executives. And so for me, it was never give up. Yeah, I can't get that internship sophomore year. I'm going to build my personal brand to become better, more internships, more experience, more leadership positions in student-run organizations. Actually, here's a really good, interesting thing that we're talking about. NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers, they released a study for 2016. The number one skill that employers are looking for is leadership. This is because, and that, you know, it aligns with the new book and everything. What I'm trying to focus on now. So even as college students, and so I did a high school career study 2 years ago, and we found that 50% of high school students have an internship now in America.
That's good.
This is where we're moving.
Or is that lower than historically or higher?
We have no comparison. It was the first one that's ever been done.
Okay.
And so
there's no comparison. Sounds like pretty healthy, actually.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, or a lot of parents are like, oh, that's awful for the kids. Let them enjoy high school. And then there's also this Wall Street Journal article that says these 4 companies only have a 40-hour work week. I'm like, no one gets it. Like the world is constantly changing, but there's one thing that will never change is that business is 24/7. Business doesn't care about you. It cares about the business, right? And because we're so connected, because we have such a global society, and there's only 2.8 degrees of separation now, you got to get with it, right? You know, you're either moving forward or you're declining.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more pressure on people now to figure out what their next step in their career is. And so for me, I call it self-incubation. So you'll always see me do something for the majority of my time, and then several projects on the side. And it allows me to experiment. It allows me to, some people would call it a distraction, but I think it keeps me more interested in what I do on a full-time basis. And the companies that I start outside of my full-time job, whether it's the Fortune 200 company, EMC, when I worked for them, started Millennial Branding, and then Millennial Branding full-time, Workplace Trends outside of that, and then Workplace Trends acquired, and then now I do Future Workplace, and then
so you have side hustles, but with the very, very, very specific intent of either learning like crazy, or like learn like crazy, and or allow it to be your main hustle at some point in the next 5 years.
I'm proud that everything I built is from zero, truly zero. I mean, imagine writing a blog with 0 readers 12 times a week for 6 months. Like you gotta love what you do at that point. That's pretty tough. And then I took it to what it is in 228 countries. So, and it's still there, and we have 6,000 articles.
There you go. Dan's blog is bigger than the United Nations.
But the point is that I like that I've been able to do everything from zero, because it gives me a sense. Like even the magazine, I designed it. I did everything, right? And that's why it kind of burned out. Pride, yeah. So now if someone's like, I could easily work for a magazine. Like it just gives me a lot of opportunities later. Like the events, it makes perfect sense for me. In college, I was throwing all the parties. And then when I graduated, I did 2.5 years of networking events where I bring in speakers. And then now I do bigger conferences. So like everything I've done in the past has prepared me for things that I wouldn't even know. I couldn't even foresee. And I like that. I think it's cool.
Well, I know you got another event to go to. Where can we find out more about you, especially if we're playing in the corporate space. But even if we're not in a corporate space and just want to learn how to continue growing our careers over time, from student to CEO.
Yeah, totally.
How do we find out more about you?
So you just go to danschawbel.com. So it's SCHAWBEL, and it has I've centralized everything, all the research, the articles, everything.
Cool.
Made it really easy to find it because otherwise it's
a beautiful site.
Thanks.
And you just get smacked in the face with your scope of work. It's you brag about it too, humble brag, not so humble brag. You're 1,600 interviews.
Yeah.
I've spoken at these many Fortune 500s, and I've done this and this and this, and it's oh my god. And you've done
it's all
you've done over
strategic.
1,000 interviews like this too.
1,600.
You've done 1,600 where
Not
you've
in
been the
person.
interviewee.
Oh, way more, thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make this one.
But on purpose, right?
One on top.
Because it's how do you differentiate yourself?
Sure.
And I need that to come out across very quickly, right? And I don't want people to just see me as an author.
Right.
There's a lot going on here. And so that was my way of differentiating myself, is to use numbers, right? If I'm going to be a market research guy, I'm using numbers to communicate what makes me special and unique in this industry. Again, I want to do hundreds of studies. I want to be, that's kind of where ego meets ambition too, right? It's there's Deloitte, I want to do more research than Deloitte. I want to take on these bigger companies with the amount of research I'm going to do, because it's something I think I've done 29, why not do 200, 300?
Right.
And that's what gets me interested in all of this too. It's what's possible. If I can do all this at 32, what's possible at 42? And that's part of what keeps me going now. But I don't feel like I'm working 100 hours a week. I feel like I really worked 120 hours a week as a recent graduate, and now I have work-life integration, right? So I'm going to an event after this, and then tomorrow I'm meeting a friend, but then I have work, and then, so it's all scattered, and maybe it helps to be in New York.
And it's 2016.
But I
can bring your friend Lena to one of our meetings. We can have balloons, walk around.
But it's like-minded people. That's the key.
Well,
right?
that's the prerequisite.
Yeah, you want to be around like-minded people, and when you're not, it kind of weighs both of you down, right?
Sure.
Because the other person, if they're not ambitious, if they're a couch potato, they're not going to feel included. They're not going to feel, it's going to put too much pressure on them and create anxiety because they're not on the same page as you in a sense. Whereas if you do like-minded people, regardless of where, if you've written 10 books versus one book or whatever you've done, it's easy to have the conversation because you can relate to them. So there's certain people like this guy Ryan Holiday, you might know, and I was with him yesterday, and I'm like, yeah, this friendship works. It's very obvious because you get it.
His business partner is going to be in 3 billion under 30.
Yeah,
you know Brett?
Yeah, I'm meeting him next week, Monday. And but the idea is that people get it if they're willing to help you without asking for anything in return. That's, to me, someone who understands how networking, relationships, and business works. And so I want to be aligned to those people.
Right.
And I know it within the first 30 seconds if that's the type of person or not.
So to recap, hang out with people who will give and receive without expectation.
And they don't need to be billionaires or anything like that.
But hang out with people that can give and receive without expectation. There's just so many
do as much as you can
early on. Have this crazy experimentative mindset.
Totally. And that shouldn't change. You're a student for life. You should always experiment.
Right. Look at your goals every single day and have some goals. Whether you break them down like you do with weekly, yearly, future. Or I actually just took a page out of Napoleon Hill's book and I set my definite chief aim for the year. So I'm going to start doing that as well. Looking
smart.
at that every single day. It's just the definite chief aim and then my not to do list. So that's how I set it up. But just have something that reminds you of your ambitions every day and has that subconscious thing going on.
That's why my future goals are on the same page. They're in the same document as my present goals. Because I have to keep looking at my future goals.
Make sure they're all aligned, yeah.
And it pisses me off that I haven't done them, right? So it gets me going. But I know I can't do everything now. It's not going to
work. What were the other main takeaways from this? There's a gazillion. I'm just trying to pluck them from 20 minutes ago and put them up here.
I gotta go.
Just go watch the interview again.
Yeah.
Anyways, check out Dan's site. Buy his books if you haven't. Check out his research, case studies if you haven't. Go listen to him speak on YouTube or attend an event if you haven't. And everything else that you've done, like go check out his blog, everything. He's an amazing guy. If you get to New York, try and get him for a meeting. That might be one of the You Never Know meetings. And at any rate, thanks for your time. We'll put links in the description below so you can check out all of this. And thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Pleasure. Always good seeing you.
Thank you for watching another episode of Stories from the 3 Billion Under 30. Now, if you want to see more stories from the 3 Billion Under 30, we actually have a book coming out in January called 3 Billion Under 30. And if you go and click the link in the description below, you can get 3 free stories from the next book right now. Not in January, now. So check it out and follow the rest of the web series in order to see more interviews just like this one.